Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. How's it going, Brooke? Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. How's your week going?
Going good. I can't complain. How's your week?
You know, not too bad, not too bad. I don't know when this will actually be released, but I had my 29th birthday on Monday, and so I'm officially, you know,
an old man.
Yeah, basically. But I look at it now, I'm like, damn, like every day is one step closer to 30. Though I do feel like 30's low key.
It just happened.
Yeah, but I know. But now that I'm over the hump, like now I'm over 29. So now every day I'm one day closer, right? So it's because I used to be like, no, I'm 28, so I still have to get to 29. Now I'm there. Now I'm there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So. But no, had a good little birthday celebration, ate way too much, and had a good old time. But yeah, we'll see. But 30, I feel like is cool now. 30 is like the new 20.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because we're dumb at 20. You know, we're life dumb
we
at
don't know
20.
what we're doing.
Yeah. So I feel like 30, we like have our shit together, or we're supposed to have our shit together. Yeah, we're adults for sure. Yeah. If you're not an adult by 30, what are you doing? But yeah, we're supposed to have our shit together. Life's supposed to be, we have, you know, some good experience going into it. So I feel like 30s are going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm changing my perception on it.
It is going to be amazing.
I used to look at it like 30s, that's old as shit. Now I'm like 30s
Best time of your
experienced.
life.
Yeah. Yes. The
Experienced adult.
The roaring 30s. That's what I'm calling it. Okay. But yeah, so before we get into this, I do want to give a warning to everybody. We are going to be talking about some tough subjects today. We are going to be talking about body dysmorphia. We are going to be talking about eating disorders. We are going to be talking about physically and mentally abusive relationships. So I do want to give a warning to anybody. If that's a subject that you don't want to listen to, or if it's triggering for you anyway, I do want to point out that is what we're going to be discussing today. So yeah. Now, on a lighter note, this is a whole new setup. We got a whole setup going here. Brooke, how's it look?
We got a whole studio going on.
Does it look legit?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on like a legitimate like set, like
it's
a
dope.
Yeah. Except I have to set it all up,
know.
which that part sucks. And I feel like every time I go upstairs, I like bang all the lights and shit against the wall,
It's a
and
process.
it's a process. But I don't have the system down yet, but we're close. We're getting there.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we got 3 cameras now. We got one right there. We got one right there. And Brooke, point at that one. I'll cut to you. Boom. So, you know, we got the whole setup. It looks legit. And, you know, I think it's all working properly. I still, you know, don't completely know, but, you know, we just kind of, we wing it at times, right?
Yeah,
so,
always.
Yeah, there's really everyone keeps asking me, they're like, well, as a photographer, like, you know, it's a little easier. And I'm like, no, not at all. Like, I don't really know anything about video or getting all this set up. This is all really foreign to me. So I'm really just hoping when I take these video files and put them on my computer, it just magically puts itself together into a podcast episode. So
same.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. But for everybody who is watching, now we're on YouTube. Now we're on Spotify. Well, we've been on Spotify. We've been on Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But we are now on YouTube. So make sure that you subscribe, you download the video, you like, you know, all that shit. Comment, the whole 9 yards. Do everything, okay? Share. Yeah, send it to everybody. All that sort of stuff really does help. It actually really does help you get a lot more exposure to the podcast. So if you guys don't mind, hit that like button, subscribe button, download button, comment button, all the buttons, not the dislike button. Don't hit that one. Don't any button but that button. If you guys can do that, I would very much appreciate it. And yeah, so now to get into the episode, Brooke, can you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself? Who is Brooke Swallow?
Yeah, so me in a nutshell, I'm 24. I was born in Danville, California, and then I moved to Vegas when I was 12 years old, and then Manhattan Beach when I was 15. I'm a Capricorn.
Okay.
Capricorns.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I've recently downloaded this app. I think it's called Colcer. And it like tells you a lot about your actual like birth chart. It's actually really interesting. There's some of the stuff I read, I'm like, this is like extremely accurate for myself. So I know I just gave a free plug to that app, but it actually is really interesting. If you know like what time you were born at and everything like that, it really does like nail you down to a science.
I'll have to check that out after this.
Yeah, we'll have to give that a. Someone else is gonna be watching this like, yeah, I get it. She's a Capricorn. Mm-hmm. And so I get it all the time. I'll have somebody like, oh, what astrological sign are you? I'm like, Libra, and they're like,
Yep.
Knew that about you. I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, what's that mean? So I don't know. But so before we dive into things even further, one of the reasons why I wanted to have Brooke on is because Brooke is one of the first people that I started shooting with when I moved out to LA. And so in that time, we've really gotten to know each other. And I feel like her story is really relatable for a lot of people. And then for people that it's not relatable to, I feel like it's going to be super informative. And so, yeah, wanted to have you on the podcast, have this conversation, have everybody get to know you in a deeper way. And once again, I think a lot of people relate, and other people it'll just be informative. And, yeah. That's why I wanted to have you on. So
stoked to be here, Marc.
There we go. Stoked to have you, and stoked to actually get this done and get it done right, because we put this off for a minute.
I know.
So I'm very glad we've been able to make this happen today. But yeah, Brooke. So let's kind of go back to, you said you grew up in Danville, and then you moved out to Vegas, and then your like real childhood memories really come into when you were 15 in Manhattan Beach, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about what was your childhood like? What was growing up like? All that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. So growing up was a little different than most kids. We never really, you don't participate in holidays. So like, no Halloween, no Christmas, no birthdays, but it's fine because I'm fine now. But yeah, and then when I moved to Manhattan Beach, my parents, divorced. So they were kind of like, okay, just pick what way you want to go. And I decided to leave being a Jehovah's Witness. But I mean, I would say the thing that had a huge impact on me was when they got divorced. Just because I always thought our family was fine. Like, I wouldn't say we were picture perfect, but I never thought anything was wrong. And I don't know, it was just such a shock when that happened.
So, okay, now going back real quick, because one of the things that you brought up was that being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, you guys didn't celebrate holidays. So are you talking you didn't celebrate any holiday?
No.
Like Thanksgiving, July 4th, Labor Day, Memorial Day, none of them?
No.
Wow. That is crazy. So, and your birthday's end of December, right?
Yeah.
So, damn. I mean, you missed out on like the double birthday presents, because essentially Christmas presents and then birthday presents back to back.
Yeah.
So do you have any sort of like right now it's mid-October while we're recording this. I don't know when this will be released. Hopefully beginning in November. But we're getting ready for Halloween. Do you have any like feelings about Halloween? Does that make you feel any type of way?
I mean, I dress up. I go to parties as an adult.
But you never went did you go trick-or-treating at any point?
No.
Man, that's heartbreaking to me.
I did. Well, when I was 16, I did.
Okay.
It was like I just wanted to experience it.
It was still lit at 16. Yeah. Oh yeah. We filled up the old pillowcase full of candy. You come home, you throw that on the ground. You just got candy everywhere.
Got a couple looks, but it's fine.
No, I feel like that's it doesn't matter if you're under the age of 18. If you're still in high school, you can go trick or treating. If you're over, if you're out of high school, like okay, stop it. You're supposed to be the ones handing out the candy now. Yeah. But okay, so all right, now we'll fast forward to your parents divorced, and you essentially at that point decided to no longer practice being a Jehovah's Witness. How did that experience kind of shape you? I guess was there any big life changes as a result of that? And I guess how did you adapt and I guess get used to your new norm?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have trouble adapting necessarily to that, but I mean, I would say so. When they first divorced, I also got a boyfriend at the same time that they divorced. Mm-hmm. And it was my first boyfriend I ever had, just because my parents also were like, you can't date till you're 16. Fine, I get that. But that relationship in turn ended up being really toxic. It led to just a lot of things, me going through an eating disorder, depression, just struggling through a lot of things that I had to go through alone, just because my parents were very preoccupied with their divorce and I didn't feel like I could talk to them about things that were going on with me. Yeah, so it kind of just spiraled.
Okay, so when you talk about the eating disorder and dating this guy and that kind of eventually leading to an eating disorder, how exactly did that lead to an eating disorder?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that happened that I now recognize that were really bad and led to me just being, mentally messed up in a way. When I first started dating him, things were fine, whatever. And then a couple weeks into dating, things got, so Instagram was just starting to kind of pop off at that time. And that was the time when did you use Instagram back.
Oh yeah.
then.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you did. But back where I was living, it was like all the like Brandy Melville models were like the crap, like it's, you know, all that stuff. And I would catch him like commenting on these girls' pictures, like, oh wow, really pretty, or just like hot, beautiful, or like wow. And I was just like, why is my boyfriend commenting on these girls' pictures who he doesn't even know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I'd confront him about it, like, you know, why are you doing this? And he's just like, oh, like, I'm just being nice. And I'm just like, okay, 16-year-old me is just like, okay, like, whatever. And then, so I played tennis. So I was never, like, big, but I was, you know, muscular, obviously, when you play a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'd go out to dinner, and I'd be like, hey, I'm going to get a hamburger. And he'd be like, no, she's going to get a salad. And
That's
I was
fucked up.
Yeah. And I was just like, no, I don't want a salad. I wanted a hamburger. And he's like, no, you need a salad. Like, you're just a little big. You need a salad. And I was just like, oh my, like, I never, ever, ever in my entire life up to that point had ever had any sort of like, oh my God, I might be too big, blah, blah, blah. I've never had any sort of negative per se thoughts about my body. And then after that, I was kind of just like taken aback. I was like, why is he correcting my order for me? Like, it messed me up really bad, obviously. A2, because I didn't have, you know, my parents there either for me to talk to them about what was going on. So I kind of just like took it. And I also noticed that like the girls' pictures who was commenting on were very thin, just thin. And there's nothing wrong with that. But those were the types of girls that he was, you know, associating himself with. And so I was just like, okay, well, I guess if my boyfriend thinks I'm too big, I must be too big. And after that, it kind of all just went downhill really fast after that.
So how bad did it get at your lowest?
I mean, so I'm 5'8", and my lowest weight I ever got to was 88 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really bad. And my parents like had recognized, they saw me like, when I was eating, I was literally like, I was afraid of carbs. I wouldn't eat carbs, or like I'd stay away from anything that I thought was fattening. So my diet consisted of like egg whites, chicken. I was like on a bodybuilder's diet, but just only protein. That's like all I was eating, because I was like, okay, if I want to get skinny, that's what I'm going to have to do. And my parents recognized it after a while, because they could see when I started losing weight, like I lost a lot of weight in my face. I looked tired a lot. I was very frail. And eventually, like my dad came up to me and was like, hey, Brooke, what's going on? Like, you're looking really skinny. And I was just like, oh, like I'm fine. I'm just, you know, I just changed my diet up. And then I think him and my mom must have had a conversation, because it was also weird because I was going back and forth between their houses.
Yeah.
Every other week I would change over, and they didn't really know what to do with me, because they just saw I was getting skinny and they didn't know how to approach it. Like there's no, you know, guide.
Yeah, there's no handbook on how to handle a situation
when your child is going through this.
Yeah.
And so basically, eventually what had happened was every single week, Monday, I was going to the nutritionist. Tuesday, I was seeing my therapist. And then Wednesday, I was going to the doctor and getting weighed. So I was getting weighed once a week just to make sure I wasn't losing any more weight than I was.
Were you supportive of that idea at that time? Or
No.
Okay.
Well, I didn't think anything was wrong with me.
Okay.
I didn't reckon. I was like, my boyfriend says I look great, like all this stuff, like nothing's wrong with me. And it just led down to a really bad path, just a really bad relationship with food, just like everything.
So I guess, when did you realize that there was, I mean, you said at that time you didn't recognize it, right?
Yeah.
And so at what point did you recognize that there was an issue?
It took me a while. I mean, for the longest time, I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't see anything that's wrong with what I'm doing. My boyfriend at the time wasn't saying that, like, hey, you're getting really skinny. Like, nothing was being said. So I was just like, no, everything I'm doing is fine. Like, I don't know. It's a mental thing, obviously,
yeah, of course.
too. But I thought I was fine. And like anytime I'd get on the scale and I saw I was losing weight, I was like, all right, yes, this is good. Like, let's keep losing weight, type of thing.
Did he ever say anything to you once you started to go see a dietitian and a therapist and things like that? Did he ever say anything to you of like, why are they making you do that? Or like, I guess like, how did he react, or did he not know?
Oh, he didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't tell him.
Okay. So did you tell anybody at that time kind of what you were going through, or did you kind of keep everything to yourself? Not just like the going to see a therapist and going to see a dietitian and everything, but just overall everything, your experience dealing with the toxic boyfriend, dealing with everything at home with the divorce and all of that. And then the eating disorder. Did you talk to anybody about any of those things at that time?
No, not at all. Too, because like all of the friends that I had when I first moved, when I started dating this guy, they all kind of just started dropping off per se. Just because, I mean, when I first moved, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know his character. I didn't really know anything. And they were just like, no, he's bad. We don't want to be around him. We don't like him, blah, blah, blah. And, 16-year-old me was just like, well, I'm going to choose my boyfriend over you guys. And so all my friends just kind of dropped off. So I would say, like, I probably, like, lost a majority of my friends, like, 6 months after moving to Manhattan Beach.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when did things, I guess, start to get better? When did, because I mean, going to the dietitian and everything like that, and you not being supportive of that idea, were you rebelling against like what the dietitian was saying you needed to do, or were you, I guess, like, I don't know what other way to say it, like, were you complying with what the dietitian was saying, or were you still, how did that whole situation play out?
Yeah, we eventually had to stop the dietitian because I was not listening. I was not listening. Nothing was happening. Like, because I had to keep a food log of what I was eating and then, report it back to her every week. And nothing ever changed. Like, nothing I was doing was changing. And then we just stopped her altogether. And then basically what happened was my parents threatened that they were going to put me in as an inpatient if I didn't start, fixing my ways. And obviously I didn't want that because I was like, oh my God, okay, well, great. What are people going to say about me when that happens? So they stopped the dietitian, and then therapy stopped too because I wanted nothing to do with it. Like, I refused to really speak during the session, so I'd kind of just sit there and just stare at her. And so that stopped. And then the doctor, though, 1 week they brought me to a doctor, and they took a lot of tests, and basically this was when things were probably at their peak worst.
Okay. And
the doctor basically told me, because they were measuring my heart rate when I sat up, and they're measuring it when I laid back, and then they measured it when I stood up. And when I laid back, my heart rate would get really, really, really slow. And then when I stood up, it would just get really fast. So my doctor was basically just like, you're going to die if you keep doing what you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, at that point, I was just like, I was so just like mentally drained. I mean, I was battling with myself every single day.
Yeah.
I was just like, I really just don't care. I really was just like, I could give less of a crap if I just don't wake up one day. Because it's just a constant mental battle with yourself, and like looking in the mirror and not liking what you're seeing. And then food too. You need food, but I was just like afraid of food. So it was just like a freaking mess.
Yeah, a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
That's it. So when did it start, I guess, to get better, or when did things, were you still, at this point, you were still dating this guy completely? And when you say you were at your lowest, how long from when, like, I guess you started dating him to this point?
So I would say we were probably, so he was a year older than me. So when I was a sophomore, he was a junior. And then I would say my lowest was my junior year. I would say mid junior year.
Okay.
And he would be like, he never really said like, okay, you're actually like really skinny now, but he was just like, hey, like you look like you've lost a little bit of weight. And I was just kind of just like, I don't know. I felt like at that point, I was just like, nothing will ever freaking satisfy this kid.
Yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what. I was like, I literally just like starved myself just to freaking please you, blah, blah, blah. Things didn't get better until I would say my senior year, probably almost close to graduation. So probably closer to like April of my senior year. And we weren't together at that time either. He went off to ASU, wanted to have fun. So he broke things off with me my senior year when I was going into senior year. He was going into college, broke that off. And then what I ended up doing, like, I was so, like, my senior year, I was just like, I was so skinny. I was wearing sweatpants to class all the time, sweatshirts. I was kind of embarrassed about how I looked, but I also didn't really know how to fix it just because my relationship with food was so messed up that didn't know just what to do. But it didn't get better until later on in my senior year. I actually made an Instagram, I wouldn't say a fake Instagram, but like my secondary Instagram, basically. Yeah. And what had happened was I started following like food blogs, blah, blah, blah. And that led me to somehow finding other girls who were struggling through eating disorders. And they use their Instagram almost as like a diary, posting pictures or saying how they felt today, how, like it's because my dad used to say, why don't you just eat the food? I don't understand. And you don't understand that until you actually like go through it. It's so much more than just like eating the food. It's a whole mental thing. And I was like, oh my God, I relate to these people. I finally found, because I never talked to anyone about it. Obviously, I like lost most of my friends. And like at lunch, I would either like walk around campus and just like listen to music, aimlessly wander, or I'd just leave campus and I'd go home, or I'd just sit in the bathroom and eat my food alone. And I was ditching class so much that the office called my mom and was like, hey, your daughter's missing her fourth period, like at least 4 times a week. If she doesn't start showing up, she's not going to graduate.
Wow.
And yeah, and that was tough because I was like, I begged my mom to homeschool me because I was like, Mom, I don't want to be at school. Like, I don't have any friends. Like, I'm just like kind of a loner type of thing. And she was just like, just stick it out, please. You just need to graduate. But going back to my point, ultimately was I connected with these girls on Instagram who were going through the same stuff as me. And we would talk every single day. And we talk about how our days were, like, what's one thing you did today we called them fear foods. What's one fear food that you tried today? It was like a community of people.
Yeah.
And once that happened, once I started opening up to people and I saw they were improving, I was like, okay, because I felt like I was alone and like no one understood what I was going through. And then once I started opening up and relating to these girls, it was kind of like we were kind of pushing each other to, recover and, be a better version of ourselves than we were.
That's cool. I mean, that's something that I think everybody can relate to that in some way or another of I think it's easy, especially when you're growing up, to feel like you're the only person that's experiencing something. Mm-hmm. But once you find that community of people that are experiencing something similar to what you're going through at that time, whether that be parents going through a divorce, whether that's moving to a new city, whether that's going through an eating disorder, whether that's going through all of those things all at once, there are people that relate to that. And when you talk about it, it's not only therapeutic, but it's helpful for everybody to see that you're not alone. And I think that's something that even at, like living in LA now, I mean, you grew up and spent most of your life in Los Angeles, but myself moving out here at 23, that's one of the things that people talk the most about in LA is I feel alone, right? Like I don't have a lot of friends out here. It's not easy to make friends out here. And that's very, very true. Yeah. I preach to everybody. I'm like, man, find that community, because otherwise, if you don't find that core group of people that you can just talk to about everything, you do feel alone. And when you feel alone, the problems that you have only grow bigger because that you become further into your own head, and it can spiral very, very quickly. And so that's something I talk about all the time with people, is just you have to really go, especially when you move to a new city. So this is not only just important when you're 15, but even like yourself, you're about to move to New York. And it's like, it's so important for people to really, really try to acclimate themselves to the area that they're in, find that core group of friends that you can talk to and that you can open up to. And, and I always say to people, it's like where you look for your friends is also important. Yeah. If you're going and you're meeting these people at a nightclub and things like that, and people are, drunk as shit, or they're coked out, or they're whatever, that group of people's probably not going to end up being the group that you're like, these are my best friends, right? But but if you go to a like spin class or like something productive, right? Like a yoga, something along those lines, and you meet people there, and you know, and you start to develop friends like that, and you've met each other in these productive environments. Those are people that you usually tend to end up being close to, and that's how like you and I ended up close, because we met in a productive environment. We were doing a photo shoot, we were shooting for brands that you were working with, and then we became good friends, and over, you know, we went from just, you know, like photographer, model shooting together to now actual good friends who call each other, who text each other, even when we're not talking about photo shoots and things like that. So yeah, I preach that to everybody. I'll end my little sermon here, but man, just find that group of people to talk to, because it is so beyond important, and you are not alone. No matter what you're going through currently, you are not alone, and I promise you there are other people going through what you're going through right now, and you will overcome it. Example here. All right.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Damn right. So when did, I guess, things turn around completely? Like you're going through all of that. Your senior year, things are going pretty rough. You're no longer at this point. Are you on the tennis team or not on the tennis team?
I'm off the tennis team now.
Okay.
I was so little that I basically could not keep up with the other girls, because I was eating under 1,000 calories a day. But then I'd run about 5-6 miles before I'd go to tennis practice. I'd go to the gym, run a couple miles, and then go to tennis practice after that. I was obviously gassed coming into tennis practice, but it's crazy because, you know, I was planning on playing in college. I played competitively for 9 years. Like ever since I was 9, tennis tournaments. I love tennis. Like it helped. Honestly, it was like a stress reliever for me. I had so much fun all the time. And then, my senior year, basically, my coach on the tennis team was just like, there's no way you can play. Like, I was like literally 88 pounds. Like, I was fragile. I was getting worked on those tennis courts too by people I should not have been getting worked. Like, I was just, and he could see that I was just tired. Like, tired. And the tennis coach kind of knew what I was going through, just because like my junior year, when I was playing in matches, my boyfriend at the time would come, and my tennis coach wasn't a fan of him coming, because he could tell he would mess with my mind kind of. Yeah. And so my tennis coach eventually was just like, I hate to say it, but your boyfriend's not allowed to come to these tournaments anymore. Like, he's more of a disturbance than he is anything. Yeah. But then my senior year, my coach was like, you can't play on this team. I'm so sorry. And it was for I should not have been playing on that team though, because like if you're eating under 1,000 calories and then I'm running 5-6 miles and then I'm playing tennis after, and how am I fueling myself? I'm not. And I was just getting destroyed. And I didn't even have the energy to play too. I didn't even have the energy to study. I barely passed high school. Like, I was just so tired all the time from not eating and from overworking myself. I just literally had the utmost energy to get out of bed every day. Damn. So that kind of threw me into a shock when I was like, oh my God, like growing up, tennis was like life to me. It was just, you know, everything I knew. And then it just all got like taken away from me just like that. Damn. Yeah.
And so once you connected with that group of women that were all going through similar experiences to you, how soon did you start to see a benefit come from that?
Honestly, very quickly. Because I was talking to multiple girls pretty much after that, like every day, all day. We all just became friends. I feel like we were all just very, you know, lonely in our own world. And then once we found each other, it was kind of like the light that I needed, like the saving grace that I needed per se. But after that, especially when you talk to people, it freaking helps. It freaking helps. Yeah. And you almost feel like, I wouldn't say like Superman, but I was like, oh my God, like my friend is doing this. If she can, like, one big thing for me was like, I was so afraid to eat pizza. So afraid. Like, I remember once I cried when, like, I went out to eat with my mom and I just saw all the cheese, and I was just like, I'm gonna get fat and die from this. And I just started crying. And we were out at dinner with me and my mom, and I just started crying, and my mom was like, oh, like my poor mom, I saw her just like, what is going on? What did I do? Like, she was just trying to help me. Right. But I would say after meeting that community, things flipped around really fast. Like, I started eating things that I was too afraid to eat. I also stopped running 6 miles a freaking day. I didn't feel the need to have to like go to the gym and, you know, do all the exercises. I would say once when I was graduating high school, I was definitely in a good place. Obviously I had more weight to gain, but I was in a much better place. And then after that, it was kind of just like progressively just like uphill from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did you, I can't remember what the term is called again, but when
Weight
were
restored.
you weight restored?
Yeah.
When were you completely weight restored?
I was summer, like August. So I graduated in
Like June-ish?
early June-ish. And I was completely like weight restored August.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So after, I guess, so how did things proceed from there? Because you and I met, how old were you when we met?
I want to
this
say,
is like 6 years ago. How old are you now?
I'm 24 now.
24. So we basically met, I think we met like 5 years
like
ago then.
18 or 19?
You were, yeah, something
19.
along those lines.
I was 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So at that point, so basically wow, that's crazy because I honestly know any of this at that time when we met. And so when you were 19, you started to develop a large social media following, correct?
Yeah.
So how did that come to be?
That came to be, I mean, honestly, one day I posted a picture in a bikini and I was looking back, so it was like up my butt.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it just blew up out of nowhere. And TFM, whatever, college, what is that?
TFM Girls.
Yeah, TFM.
Barstool
I don't even
Smoke
know.
Shows, all those accounts, yeah.
Actually messaged me and was like, hey, can we post this on our page? And I think that was when too they were kind of starting to get traction, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, totally. And then after they posted that, it was kind of just like, oh my, I'd wake up and just like overnight, it was just like hundreds. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? Like I just posted one picture. And then after that, I was like, well, crap, I might as well submit myself to freaking Barstool, whatever. And so like, I submitted myself to them. They posted me. And then after that, it was kind of just like crazy.
Yeah, you graduated. I think by the time we met, you had, I think, around 100,000 followers, something like that.
It was, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. So,
wild.
Okay. So you gained the social media following. Did that ever cause you to go backwards in terms of like, once you were weight restored, did you ever go back at all?
I mean, no, there's never been an instance where I've gone back. I think going through what I went through and the, you know, the long time frame that I went through it, I'm a very mentally strong person. And obviously, you know, some days are harder than others, but I've never had an instance where I went backwards from what I was doing. Obviously you have, you know, bad body image days where you're just like, oh, I kind of feel like a potato today type of thing, but I've never gone backwards.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay. So, and what is your relationship like with food today?
I mean, I have a good, like I eat pretty much, I don't eat like everything and anything. But I'm never like, if I want pizza, I'll eat pizza. I'm not like, oh, the pizza's going to make me fat type of thing. But I do look at food differently in a sense that when I saw a nutritionist for God knows how long, I learned a lot about, you know, micronutrients, what's a carbohydrate, what's a fat. So now when I look at food, I don't necessarily look at it as like, okay, I'm just eating the pasta. When I see pasta, I'm like, all right, that's a freaking carb heavy meal with, you know, fats and all the stuff. I'm going to need some protein later. But yeah, it's definitely not, and it never will be just, all right, I'm just going to eat the freaking pizza and just like whatever. It'll never be like that. But I look at food in a different way, but I'm never just like, oh, I can't eat that. It's going to make me fat.
Okay. So basically, your past experiences cause you to look at food in the sense of like what it offers you, but it also, it's not in the instance of like, now there's nothing that you like essentially stop yourself from eating. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, all right. So then after now, so let's go back to where we're at now. So we're 19 years old. Are you in college?
Yes, I am in college.
Okay. And where did you go again?
I also had a really weird college experience. So I got into University of Oregon, but I got in their winter semester.
Okay.
So basically I went to community college my fall semester, fall 2015.
Okay.
And then I went to University of Oregon for their winter quarter, which was 3 months, January, February, March of 2016. And ultimately too, I had another boyfriend, so my college boyfriend, he was back here going to LMU, and I was doing Oregon, so we were like doing long distance for a little bit. But ultimately, like, it was very cold, and I didn't tour the school in winter, and just came back home. So I did community college for another semester, and then I transferred to LMU.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess you could say I went to LMU.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, because I think at this point when we met, you were at LMU.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So now you've essentially overcome the eating disorder, and obviously you've gotten used to at this point dealing with parents being divorced. Do you feel like that continually affected your relationships moving forward after dealing with toxic boyfriend in high school, then battling the eating disorder, overcoming the eating disorder, but then still going through parents being in a divorce and everything like that? How did that affect your relationships moving forward?
I would say it led me not choosing the best, let's just say it led me to choosing not healthy relationships. Let's just say that toxic. I just almost chased toxicity for a while. Just because, and two, like when I went to my therapist, we had a lot of conversations about this, and nowadays I recognize it. Growing up, my dad was always there for me financially, but like emotionally or anything like that, he was never really there for me. He was always working, very busy on the phone, just stressed a lot. And I almost like didn't ever want to like bother him, or, I almost felt like a hindrance to ask him a question. And it wasn't a hostile household growing up, but I was, let's just say, afraid to ask him questions just because he was very stressed, very, very stressed. So I was afraid if I asked him the wrong thing, he'd just snap on me. So I never really... It's not that I didn't have a father figure growing up, but I never had that. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. There wasn't like a strong
there wasn't a good bond with my dad. So I didn't have that like female. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like you really do need that.
Like you didn't have a compassionate relationship with your father.
Yes. So I never felt like I could just like go up and hug him and just be like, oh, I'm having the worst day because XYZ, just because I knew he was probably having a 10 times worse day with me, and I didn't want to bother him with my issues. But leading up to what I'm saying is that ultimately I didn't recognize like toxic when I saw it. I would kind of just be like, oh, like, okay, well, they say they'll fix it. It'll be fine. Like, whatever. But yeah, going into that, I mean, I would say it definitely, I picked toxic relationships.
Yeah. So without going into super details, because we're not going to mention people's names or anything like that. You dealt with some, I guess, crazy experiences after the high school boyfriend, going into some of the people that you've dated since. Once again, we're not going to mention any names or things like that, but I guess kind of give some of the experiences that you've had since with men.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, another thing too is obviously social media. So I had a pretty big following when I was in college. I mean, I at that point I had over 250,000 followers, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And at first he was like, oh, that's dope. That's really cool. Like, didn't really care. And then eventually I could kind of tell it was bothering him, like certain pictures, like, obviously he wasn't a fan of the post in the butt, look back at it type of thing. But it ultimately led to just going downhill, just because there wasn't much communication. There wasn't much, I don't know, when like a picture upset him, he wouldn't really say it. He would kind of just be like, And then after, I would say, well, we dated for like a while, it was 4 years, but, after like, it just like, it never got better. It just kind of went downhill, and it got to a certain point. I mean, there's two sides to every story, obviously, but it got to a point where he would question when I went out with my friends, like, you're not going out with your friends. Like, who are you actually meeting? And it was just like, I have zero like malicious intentions. I'm literally going to dinner with my friends. You're tracking me on my phone. Like, what can I possibly do to show you that I'm just going out to dinner with my friends? Like, it got so bad, I think, just because he was very insecure.
Yeah.
About like, okay, obviously there was guys commenting on my pictures, but it's not like I'm commenting back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't help what other people are saying to me,
right.
But what I say back, sure, that if you can get mad at me for that all freaking day long.
Yeah.
But it just led to like me being called certain names, and like obviously certain adjectives are hurtful, especially when you don't deserve to be called that.
Yeah.
So it led to that downward spiral of any time he would get drunk or get mad, it was just like the names would just be freaking called out. You know, whore, you slut, you know, all those things. And it's like, obviously you should never call someone when that is not deserved. And like that's another thing too, because those words are hurtful.
And even when it is deserved, still don't use those words. Let's just remove ourselves from that scenario. Yeah. But okay, continue. Yeah.
But obviously those words are hurtful.
Yeah, of course.
And coming from, you know, your boyfriend at the time, it was just like, and it just got so bad. I mean, I remember once you posted a picture of me,
that I shot, yeah.
Yes, you shot, and it was me looking back at it, and he got so upset with that. I remember he was just like, you're just a little, like, I'm not even going to say what he said. Yeah. It was just very, and it hurts because you're just like, what, excuse me? Like, okay, if you have a problem, like, let's talk about it. Let's not just, like, start throwing out names. But it just got so bad as to a point where it's just like, I was just like, okay, I felt like I couldn't go to dinner with my friends or like do anything like that because I didn't want to, I was just like, you know what? I'm better off just sitting at home and just like, I don't want to deal with an argument. I'm better off just like, let's just not do it. So I was skipping out on my friends a lot because I was just like, guys, like, you know, there's going to just worse things are to come for me going to dinner with you than me just sitting at home. So that was happening. And then the mean names were being called. It was almost like you were just walking on freaking glass constantly. Yeah. Because I felt like I look at this guy, you're going to start calling me a freaking whore. Like, why'd you look at him type of thing. So that just was insanely toxic. Like, just then I think the name calling was just too much. And then, you know, it's verbal abuse. It's just like all these things are spiraling at you at once.
And did it get physical?
It never got physical. No, it never got physical. Pushing. I mean, that's
pushing would be physical. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, occasional pushing, but it was never. I've never got like socked in the, you know, or anything like that. But there were definitely instances where I was afraid. Yeah. Type of thing.
And is that what eventually caused you guys to break up?
Yeah. There was an instance that was so bad that I'm not going to get into details, but I basically was so afraid that I hid in my closet and I started texting my friends that I was basically afraid that something was going to happen to me. And then I texted my mom too, and she was basically like, come home, you need to get home now. So I freaking darted out of there. I left, I went home, and after that it was done.
I remember that day.
Yeah. I think I texted you too. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I called you crying.
I remember that day. It's stuff like all this shit's so crazy to me because my men and women have these odd relationships with each other where I don't feel like there's a lot of people that have platonic friendships with the opposite sex. I feel like there's always this pressure of like we're all just chasing each other to try and hook up and all that shit. And for me, my sophomore year of college, I lived with 3 women. And so I had a super unique experience because I lived with 3 women with a platonic friendship. And I will always say the thing that affected me the most was as growing up, whenever you heard a guy say something negative to a woman, whether it's calling her a bitch, whether it's calling her a slut or whatever, all you ever saw was the effect that it had on her in front of that person, right? Yeah. You never saw the aftermath, right? Yeah. Because she would go home or she would go in with her girlfriends and you wouldn't see that aftermath, right? When I was in college living with 3 women, I saw the aftermath. Yeah. And it changed, and I was never like, I wasn't the guy that was calling people those names back then, but it changed the way that I viewed the male dynamic because I was like, damn, I never realized how much male actions affected women, right? And even to this day, I tell men all the time, you know, my guy friends or whoever, I always say, I'm like, if you don't know, you know, women friends that have dealt with some shit, then you haven't created a comfortable enough environment for them to tell you because so many women share these crazy stories with me. You know, obviously when you shoot with people, you form this, you know, it's a vulnerable thing to shoot with somebody. And so we've had these, you know, deep conversations. That's why you and I have been able to become good friends. And so, you know, so many women have shared stories with me that I always thought were like out of movies or like out of like a CNN article. Right. And then you actually hear about them in real life. And it's so fucking crazy to me. And you know, and then you get the toxic comments where people will be like, well, then just break up with them. And it's like, it's so much deeper than that. Yeah. And you don't realize how difficult, unless you've been in that situation, you don't realize how difficult it is to get out of that situation. Right. And I can even say probably my ignorant self at some point was probably like, yeah, I don't get why you don't just leave them. Right. And I've learned over the years that because it's not that easy, right? Oh, yeah. And it's not that we have to, you know, teach our daughters to leave men in those scenarios. We need to teach our sons to not put women in those situations to begin with. Yep. And that's where the male dynamic needs to change with their sons and talking to them about how to treat women, how to treat people in general, how to treat other men, you know? Yeah. And I do think, I'm hoping, maybe it's me being optimistic, but I'm hoping that like people opening up now causes more people to realize how much their actions affect other people, right? Yeah. And that's why even when we discussed the idea of doing this podcast, I was like, I'm not trying to bring up your ex's names and things like that. I'm not trying to cause drama outside of this podcast, but I do hope if they ever watch this, I hope they realize how much their actions affected you and how they still affect you to this day, and how everybody, no matter who's watching this, your actions affect the people around you. Male, female, doesn't matter. Your actions directly affect every single person around you. And it bothers the fuck out of me how much people don't realize that. And so therefore there's so many people that are this like negative person, and then they bring that energy around those people around them, and it affects people so much deeper than people realize. And, you know, obviously I'm very proud of everything that you've overcome. And, you know, I remember those phone calls and feeling helpless myself of not knowing what to say or what to do because I'm not a therapist and I don't know how to handle those situations. And I don't think it helps to just go over there and beat the dude's ass because that just makes the situation even scarier for you. Also, I'm not a fighter. I'm 5'7" and would lose most fights. But, but it's like, it's scary. And it's, and it goes back to, we need to all hold, we need to, once again, we need to teach our sons and daughters how to respect people, mainly our sons, because they tend to be the ones doing it.
Treat others as you would yourself,
Right.
What I try to live by. It's like, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. So.
Yeah. And even to this point, because like right now, obviously we don't have children, so we're not teaching kids right now. But what we can do is call out our friends, and that's important. If you see one of your friends doing something wrong, treating somebody like shit, male or female, call it the fuck out. It's never acceptable, and don't allow your friends. Don't allow that shit. Yeah. It doesn't matter how small it is. If you see somebody that disrespecting somebody else, call it the fuck out, because if they respect you enough to listen to you, maybe we can avoid some of these scenarios moving forward. Mm-hmm. And that's all we can hope for. I mean, once again, it goes deeper, obviously, someday when we are parents and we're raising kids, that's when we have to obviously raise our sons and daughters to respect people, respect everybody. But for right now, call your friends the fuck out if you see them doing some fuck shit. And this isn't me trying to be some like, whatever, like, I don't know what the term is. I think there is a term for that, but this is about me seeing the effects of so many women that have dealt with so much shit, and how many of them have told me stories, and it bothers the shit out of me. So that's my PSA. Stop being a fucking dick, okay? Yeah. Sorry, Mom, for cussing. But yeah, so now moving into today, how does everything that you've been through, how does it affect you to this day?
I mean, it shaped me into the person I am today. I don't think I'm not, like, I never look back at the past and I'm just like, oh my God, like, if I wouldn't have gone through this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that, okay, it's great that happened, but, everything happens, and that has made me who I am today. And I would say, I mean, now too, like going into relationships, like after my last one, I took a long time to kind of sit back and be like, recognize the things that were toxic that I didn't ever, call out or anything like that. And now I know kind of, okay, these are the signs where it's a no-no, it's a red flag type of thing. So I'm definitely more in tune with that, which I think was great for me because I don't know, I think it's important, especially too when you're first dating someone. If you notice a red flag, you need to talk to them or like do something because like it never gets better. It's only either going to get worse or stay where it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, yeah, it shaped me to who I am today.
Yeah, and sometimes too those red flags, sometimes they're like an orange color.
Yeah.
And you got to recognize what could be potentially coming, cuz even like when you said a few minutes ago, well, is like pushing, is that considered like physical, right? And it's like, yeah, 100%, because anytime you put your hands on a woman or put your hands on anybody in any sort of environment in a non-friendly way, once again, that is physical. It's not just, it's not mentally abusive at that point. It's now gone to physically abusive. That's just a life thing of do not touch anybody if they do not want to be touched, and surely not in an aggressive way, right? Yeah. And but it's yeah, for sure we need to call that out as, once again, that's physical, because that's the same shit of like, once again, if you see one of your male buddies doing that to a woman, like call that shit out. That is physical abuse. Like you cannot do that. That is not acceptable in any environment. And hopefully we can avoid those scenarios from progressing if people call it out, from the jump, right? Yeah. And once again, not just the person who's in the relationship, but other people who see it. Because I do think people see things more often than they really want to believe when it comes to their own friends, right? And that's a tough thing for people, is like calling out your friends, but you have to do it. It's so important to call out people around you when it comes to anything that you see that's just not okay, whether it's being derogatory towards another group of people, whether it's a joke that's across the line. It's not to say like to always be the anti-fun police, but to also recognize when somebody around you's actions are negatively affecting somebody else, and and hopefully we can help prevent more horror stories. So now a question I have for you is, so you built up a following to, what was the largest following you had?
I think it was like 390,000.
Okay, so at this point, how do I want to word this? So what caused you to then go and delete that? Because you deleted your Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I still have it, but it's
inactive, I guess. Yeah,
no one knows about it. I was I almost felt pressured just because my following ratio was like 98% male, 2% female. So it was like, all right, pictures you're going to post that are going to get good engagement. Bikini pictures, butt shots, boob shots, just no clothing basically. And I kind of just felt almost like, okay, I can't really post what I want to post. Like this posted me having fun in clothes isn't going to get, the engagement I want to. And obviously, too, when you're partnering with brands, they want to see, that you get good engagement, all this stuff. So I was like posting images that I was kind of just like, I don't really want to post this. Like, this isn't really me type of thing. And I would say ultimately, too, just like the comments from some guys are just so weird. And like also my last name is Swallow. So it was just like a whole bundle of just like, I don't know. I just didn't care about it anymore. I was just like, I'm over this. Like, I want to post what I want to post type of thing. And I was just kind of over it. I just felt the pressure to not constantly be perfect per se, but like, yes, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, basically, yeah.
Actually, yeah. I felt like I always had to just, be on point, just look stealth. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And it was just like, okay, I was just like, I'm over, like, I don't want, this isn't me anymore. I don't want this. Like, and I was just like, done.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had this conversation privately, but when you first started posting those photos, like a butt photo or whatever, part of that was like you taking back the power, right? Like you taking back the power of, here I am, I'm confident within myself, I'm weight restored, I'm killing it, and like here's me being proud of myself. And, you know, and
But
because
no one really knew that.
Right. And so you gain this following, and then all of a sudden it goes from you posting that because you want to post that and because you're proud of yourself and you're confident in yourself and everything like that, to all of a sudden now it's being essentially
A chore.
You know, a chore, yeah, of like, if I don't post that, they'll unfollow me, they'll do this, they'll do that. Hell, I get unfollowed every time I post a photo of myself, and it's like these dudes think I'm like a girl, and like one of the girls in my photos, and I'm like, bro, how many girls do you know named Marc? Okay, like I've never met one. Okay, so I'm sure somewhere out there there's a woman named Marc. I haven't met anybody named Marc yet, but I get, you know, my birthday. I think I got like 50 people unfollow me. I was like, damn, like it's my birthday. That's brutal.
No
y'all
love.
couldn't wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Shit. It's hard out here. But yeah, no, I think it's important to take back that control and to say, you know, yeah, like, because after that, it's not like you just were gone from Instagram. You created a new Instagram where you kind of just said, fuck it. I'm going to post what I want to post. And if y'all don't like it,
bye.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting too, because I've related to that in a sense of like with photography, I've always said like if I just posted like, you know, boob shots and tit shots and things like that, I'd probably have 200, 300,000 followers, right? Yeah. If I never posted photos of myself, I'd have more followers. If I didn't post landscape photos, I'd have more followers. But I never wanted to feel that way, that I was required of me to do certain things. I wanted it to be where people know who Marc Colcer is. It's not just the people that I'm shooting with, but it's also there's a human there. It's me. I'm the one taking the photos. Like, you know, I want you to obviously show love to the people I'm shooting with, but I also want you guys to know I exist, right? Because at some point, I will no longer be a photographer, and when that point comes, I want people to care about my podcast. I want people to care about my coffee line. Great time to shout this out. Roast Umber, this is our coffee company. Roast Umber, you guys can actually, if you're watching this right now, I don't even know if this is live on our site, but I'll make it live. Use the coupon code, I can't speak, the coupon code MARC30, and you'll get 30% off our coffee. Ooh. But those are the things that are, you know, I want people to care about. You know, we've got this great team of people behind our coffee company. We've got great farmers in Guatemala. We've got a roaster in Grand Rapids who's killing it. We've got a whole team of people, and I want people to give a shit about that. But in order for me to get people to give a shit about that, I have to post the content that I like. Yeah. And if some people don't like that, if they want to unfollow me when I post a birthday pic, screw it, unfollow me, you know, whatever. And it's important for us to take that power back, because social media can be such a negative world. And I do think there are a lot of positives of it. You talk about, you know, one of the ways that you were able to battle back from your eating disorder was by finding that group of women that you were able to talk to and relate to and things like that. And so it is very, very important to, you know, find the benefits and everything, but also to recognize those negatives. And sometimes you got to say, hey, you know what? 390,000 followers on Instagram? Fuck it. I'm going inactive. Yeah. And then you have the choice. If you decide someday to bring it back, you have that choice. And if you decide, you know what? I'm never bringing it back. Whatever. That's your choice too. Brooke has the fucking power, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So question I have for you is, when it comes to apps like Facetune and things like that, Photoshop, where people go in and they change their bodies, what are your thoughts on apps like that?
I mean, I think they're absolutely terrible. They're giving girls a false perception of what other girls look like. And I also think, too, that's how eating disorders can be formed, is you have, you know, a little 12-year-old girl, and you see these, you know, Instagram models with their perfect figure and their big boobs, all that stuff. Like, that's usually just like not, you just don't look like that. So no, I think they're terrible. I mean, everyone freaking uses them, but I really do think they're terrible.
Yeah, no, I'm very much with you on that. It's actually something I hope we eventually either ban or we make it so that it has to be public if you've done that to your photos.
Well, too, like the filters on Instagram when you're posting stories.
Filters. Oh, where they like take your nose and they like.
Well, there's so many filters like that you use, and like I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'll post selfies with the filters, but it's just like another thing that's just like, why we didn't have the filters like a year ago. Why did we have to bring them up? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then you see other girls posting with it, and it's like, okay, crap.
Right. And it forms, everybody to have these unhealthy relationships with their own self. And that's something like, as a photographer, I always say I will not Photoshop people's bodies. I don't do anything like that. I hate when people go and they like smooth the fuck out of somebody's face and make them look like a porcelain doll.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why are you doing that? Like they skin has texture. Why are you removing all the texture from their skin? Like
it makes you human.
Yeah. I hate when people do that sort of shit because it creates this unrealistic expectation that's just not possible. And so when you see people and they go and they take the photo and they pinch in their waist, and I don't even think other photographers realize how fucked up that is when the girl sees the unedited photo and then she sees the one you post and you went in and you made her, her waist skinnier, and then she looks in the mirror later that day and she's like, well, shit, is my waist not skinny enough? And that's where it can cause some of the cycles of what we talked about earlier in this conversation. That's where people have to understand that their actions affect other people. So as a photographer, I've taken the stance from day one. I won't go and do that. Have people gone and done that to my photos afterwards? Fuck yeah. I discourage that every time. And I'm very open about that I don't want people doing that because I think it creates an unhealthy relationship with them and their own self-love. And then at the same time, it causes somebody else who sees that to think that that's, normal and it's like, it's just not. No one's perfect. We all have flaws. Most of the time, no one else even notices our flaws. Yeah. Like it's
all in our own head.
Yeah, it's crazy how many times somebody will say to me, and I'm not just talking people I shoot with, but just people in general. Somebody will be like, "Oh my God, my like cheekbones or like my whatever," and I'm like, "What? What the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I never in my life would have picked that out." And so it's like we all have our own insecurities. There's no doubt. I have my insecurities. You have your insecurities. Everybody has their own insecurities, but most of them are just in our head. Yeah. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. And so I encourage everybody who's currently using one of those apps, try to phase it out. Like, I know it's not easy. I know I strongly believe a lot of people are addicted to it, and they're addicted to the endorphin rush that comes from people loving that photo and all that sort of shit, and from getting the DMs and all that sort of shit. I get that. And I'm not saying social media, like, just get rid of social media, because once again, I do recognize the benefits of social media. I do think there are a lot of benefits of it, but the things that are negative are very prominently negative. And so I would just say to the people that are using those apps, try to wean yourself off of it, because it creates an unhealthy relationship with your own self-love, and there's so many other problems that come up as a result of lack of self-love.
Exactly. You don't need that.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, to kind of wrap it up, where is Brooke at now? Like, how are things? How's life? You're getting ready to move out to New York. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing great. Like you said, I'm moving to New York next month. I'm so excited. It's almost like a new chapter in my life. I get to experience the East Coast, meet new people, and yeah, I'm doing great, honestly.
It's
I'm driving right now.
You're the second person who's come on this podcast right before they moved to New York, and my friend Tara Yazdi, shout outs Tara. She'll be listening to this. She left me, went out to New York, and I was bummed because she's a good friend of mine too. And you have
all the more reason to visit New York.
This is true. This is true, but it's a bittersweet feeling having you leave here too, because you and I have become good friends, and having you all the way across the country is a bummer at times. But like you said, gives me more reason to come visit New York and go experience New York. I can't lie, I've had awful experiences in New York. So I need to
doing it wrong.
Yeah, I need to change that. My first experience in New York, I was staying in a place that was so cramped that I had to sleep on the floor, and no bullshit, with like no air mattress, no nothing. So I literally was sleeping on hardwood floors, and I would have to take a Tylenol PM to fall asleep because I was so uncomfortable. And then after a week of doing that, my hips were bruised. Like,
oh my God.
Literally,
Okay.
Yeah, it was fucked up.
Wow.
I was appreciative of the free place to stay, but it was not, and I didn't have the money at the time to
New
go.
York is very expensive.
Yeah, to get a hotel or anything like that. So I appreciated the stay.
Hospitality.
Yeah, the hospitality. I understood it. It's, hey, shit, you think LA rent is tough? New York is tough. And so, yeah, that was my past New York experience. So as long as you've got an air mattress or a couch or something like that,
much better. Okay.
Yeah, then I'm willing to come visit.
You will not be sleeping on the floor with that bruised hips.
Can't do that again.
You're too old for that.
Felt like I was in Squid Games. Great Netflix show if anyone hasn't watched that. But yeah, so to wrap it up, once more, I have a food for thought question for you. This is actually from my good buddy Briar. No, he asked me this a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to bring this up on a podcast and just see what people's answer is. So, what is more important, the flower or the soil that grows it?
The soil that grows it.
Why? This is like, there's no like right or wrong answer to this. Like, why do you say that?
Well, the flower can't grow if it doesn't have the right soil and water.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was basically, we were saying, because it was like, without the flower, there is no, like, the soil essentially can't grow anything, right? But then without the soil, the flower can't grow. So it's a
kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah, wow. It is a bit of a mind fuck. So so I want to ask people, what's more important, the flower or the soil that grows it? I would say, going back to like the conversation that we've had, and the reason why I wanted to ask you that was, I feel like it goes into like, you're the flower in this scenario, and like the soil that grows it is like your life experiences and how you grew up and everything like that. And so the soil, like how like can't remember what the proper term is for soil, like how fertile the soil is, I think is the proper term. How like, nutrient rich the soil is determines how well you turn out, right? And so your experiences shape you, and then if the nutrients aren't so strong, then you got to overcome that and grow into this beautiful flower.
Marc, I love that.
So once again, I'm proud of you, proud of everything. Obviously, I've seen a lot of that growth in the last 5 or 6 years, however long we've known each other. I've been able to see that growth. I've been able to also see the hard times and see, the phone calls or the text messages when you've dealt with some of these past scenarios, and so I'm proud of you and proud of how far you've come. And I know obviously this is still just the beginning. You're still youngin'. Yeah. What are you again? 24?
Yeah, I'm 24.
Fucking youngin'. But next chapter starting out in New York. I'm excited.
Month.
I'm excited for you. Excited to see you freeze your ass off in the middle of winter.
One part I'm not stoked for.
Hey, I experienced that way too much in Michigan, so I get that. But lastly, just plug your socials one time. Where can people find you?
My Instagram is Brooke_swallow.
Okay. And no dumb fucking comments about her last name, okay? She gets it.
Yeah.
Every joke's already been made, okay?
Everything.
It's every one of them.
Yeah.
Brooke Swallow. Fucking idiots. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you. I hope this podcast was informative for some of you. I hope it was relatable. Oh, no, actually, I don't hope it's relatable, but I hope you can, if the experiences are relatable, I hope you can find some part of this that was helpful for you. And to everybody else, I hope you're having a great day. Brooke, once again, thank you for coming on, and check back for the next episode. See you guys.
Bye.